following is my own true story from my personal experience. I do not speak on behalf of the United States Marine Corps or any other U.S. Marine. This is my own story. Your experience is different. I cannot speak on that.
The single most physically painful event in Marine Corps boot camp is the gas chamber, in my opinion. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what happens in the gas chamber and explain why it is just so painful. But before we get into the story, I want to say that this video is a celebration for hitting 30,000 subscribers, and I really appreciate all the support. And I also saw a lot of comments asking for more boot camp stories, and I was like, oh yeah, this is episode 7. I've only done one boot camp story so far, so here is another. When you see influencers and content creators get invited by the Marines to attend a boot camp experience, that is all well and good, but please understand this. They are recruitment videos. If you are actually going to boot camp as an actual recruit, let's just say that things can get a little more squirrely when there are no cameras. And when you see influencers do the gas chamber, let's just say that that is not the actual gas chamber experience. It's like the free trial version. And before someone says I'm hating, I am not. I perfectly understand why the Marine Corps isn't going to actually destroy a content creator in a promotional video. But if you want to know what the actual gas chamber experience is like, then keep on watching. The gas chamber, or also called the confidence chamber, is a late boot camp event. Marine Corps boot camp is divided into 4 phases in 2 distinct locations, MCRD San Diego and Camp Pendleton. The gas chamber is a phase 3 event located at Camp Pendleton. What does this all mean? Well, this is essentially one of the last events you will do in the Marine Corps boot camp curriculum before the final culminating event, the Crucible, where you spend 54 hours doing a bunch of challenges with limited sleep and food. So when it came to the gas chamber, at this point, we were all around a week, maybe a week and a half away, if not less, from earning our title of U.S. Marine. And because of that, they were going to fuck us up in this event. The day of the gas chamber began with a classroom instructional period. The purpose of the gas chamber, or again, the confidence chamber, is to familiarize ourselves with chemical warfare equipment and to have trust that our equipment will work when needed. So here is how to put on a gas mask. The standard issue Marine Corps gas mask is the M50 Joint Service General Purpose Mask, or just the M50. However, this period of instruction should be more or less applicable to all modern military gas masks, at least NATO standard ones, that go completely over the face. The N50 is carried in a side pouch, both attached to the waist and the leg, and is staged for easy access and use, because obviously if you're under a gas attack, you're probably not going to have time to dilly-dally on some tomfoolery. The first thing you do is hold your breath and close your eyes. This is because in chemical warfare, there are certain agents that can be deployed that causes the affected to vomit uncontrollably, making it impossible to keep a gas mask on unless you want to drown in your own vomit. And then these precursor vomiting agents are followed by more lethal gases which you would be vulnerable to. These vomiting agents can also be deployed in conjunction with more lethal gases, and poison gas can cause intense blistering, blindness, and just other stuff you probably don't want. So hold your breath and try your best to keep your eyes closed. Once the gas mask is removed from the pouch, the straps on the gas mask should already be staged so that it is almost hanging off the front, allowing you to press the gas mask against your own face and then pull the straps over your head. Oh, and I probably should have mentioned that if you have a helmet on, to remove that first alongside any glasses. If you join the military, they should have prescribed to you a separate lens that attaches to the inside of your gas mask. Once these straps are pulled over the head, tighten these straps as much as you can by simultaneously pulling on the rear dangling straps without obviously going fucking nuts and hurting yourself or damaging the equipment, and then proceed to clear the mask. This is done by using your hands to cover the front of the mask, the vent, and blowing, expelling any harmful gases that may have been trapped in your mask. And then cover the holes on your filter with both hands and breathe in sharply, forming a seal around the mask. These last 2 steps are often overlooked by like movies and video games, but they are very important and not to be skipped, because if you don't clear your mask or have a proper seal, then the previous steps are kind of just pointless because you might end up gassed anyways. Once trained, you should be able to do all these steps in 9 seconds or under. If you need to put on some additional stuff like a hood or some other CBRN stuff, then obviously it will take longer. But because in boot camp you're just working with the gas mask itself, that is what I'll be focusing on. So now that you know how to put on a gas mask and you're all caught up with the context of why and where the confidence chamber is conducted, let's get into the gas chamber experience. After our morning of instruction and some practice outside the chamber of donning the mask, it was time for the gas chamber itself. We marched outside this off-white building, it was shaped like a mini aircraft hangar. That's the best I can describe it. And on this day, 3 platoons were to conduct the gas chamber, with my platoon being the second in line. We marched in column to where the entrance of the gas chamber was, which was essentially just barren land surrounded by dirt. And then we all took a knee. At this point, we had our gas masks in our bags, staged and ready to go. And we were all receiving our final period of instruction before we went in. But not gonna lie, it was a little spooky with the anticipation and all that. My recruiters and so many other Marines had told me about the gas chamber before I enlisted. So I actually went in with sort of a plan in mind. Number 1, don't hold your breath. You are in the gas chamber for longer than any normal human being can hold their breath. You also do stuff like jumping jacks and just other exercises. So you might want to just breathe shallow and controlled instead of trying to hold your breath the entire time. And then the moment you do have to breathe and take a big gulp of air, you turn into those dudes from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Number 2, keep calm. You are not leaving the gas chamber until they let you out and they lock you in. There are no timeouts. There are no, I can't take it anymore, I quit. Once you are in the gas chamber, you are in it. So you might as well do it calmly rather than tweaking out the entire time. Number 3, it's just going to hurt. Don't go in there expecting to inhale some Febreze and leave. It's going to suck. And the better prepared you are mentally, the better. Suddenly, the first group was told to stand up and don their masks. I could already see some people low-key tweaking as they rip their gas mask out of their bags and then they began to put them on. And after 10 seconds of this command being given, the instructors began screaming at the first group, the platoon ahead of us, to get in the gas chamber. And so once the first group was in the gas chamber, we saw them just lock the doors, and now our group was the next in line, and it turned just eerily quiet. The tension and anxiety was the best as I can describe as sort of like athletes right before a big race or match or game, if you've ever done sports. During this period, our drill instructors was talking mad trash to us. And hey, they were also some of the funniest people I met. But they would be saying some slick stuff while walking up and down the column and being like, "Oh, you're gonna die today, aye, sir." And we'd be like, "Aye, aye, sir," right back at them. So maybe, I want to say 5 minutes or so passed. And keep in mind, we don't have watches in boot camp or any electronic devices. And suddenly we hear the entire gas chamber erupt with banging. Like, it sounded as if someone lit a fire inside that chamber and people were trying to escape it. The entire building was vibrating with noise by the amount of people banging on the walls on the inside. And I ain't gonna lie, when that started happening, it got me a little freaked out, alright? The drill instructors, once they heard the banging, they just turned around to us and said some shit like, "You hear that? You hear that? No, prepare your souls," or something like that. And after hearing that first group inside losing their minds, the atmosphere really just turned into dread. A few more minutes went by and suddenly the exit to the chamber bursts open, and I see people sprinting from the chamber, crying, snot running down not just their face, but their entire body. I saw somebody's snot dripping to their toes. Some dude was trying to get out so fast that he tripped and he was crawling on his hands and knees as people were stumbling over him. It literally reminded me of those apocalypse movies where people are trying to escape into a nuclear shelter or something. Although I guess in this case it was an escape into fresh air. And as we were watching the other group leave, our drill instructors began screaming at us to get on our feet and put on our masks. And so again, I was ready to go. I mean, we were training for this the entire day. I ripped mine out of the bag, and at this point, I already tucked in my boot camp glasses away, so I was ready to go. I just got it on fast, no problems, and one of my buddies suddenly next to me signaled me for some help. And what happened was my buddy next to me had put on the gas mask fine, but then when he went to pull on the 2 rear straps, he did it one at a time instead of both at the same time. So he couldn't get a proper seal once he got the thing tightened wrong. And so he was freaking the fuck out. And at this point, we were already walking towards the chamber as a platoon, and him and I were near the center/forward of the column. We were about to go in pretty soon, and my buddy was still freaking the fuck out. I'm trying to walk forward with him while also helping him with his mask. And I'm trying to tell him that I can see his straps were tightened weirdly, and so I'm gonna loosen them and then retighten his straps. Well, I'm talking out of my gas mask, so I probably sounded like a cartoon character, right? The Pyro from TF2. And he's trying to tighten them even more while I'm trying to tell him to loosen them up. It was chaos, right? Shit was already going wrong. And our drill instructor sees us trying to fix the mask, and they're just screaming, "Figure the fuck out, figure the fuck out." We're just not helping, all right? So finally, we got the straps loose in, and he yanks on them simultaneously this time, and we get a proper seal, and he clears it and all that, and we get into the gas chamber. This is an actual picture of the gas chamber we were in, and this arrow points to the exact place I was standing the entire time, so you don't have to can visualize this the entire time I'm talking about my gas chamber experience. We went in there in a single file, and we surrounded the edges of the chamber, and in the center there was this big pot with of chemicals, obviously, with a dude in a full NBC or hazmat suit standing next to it. Immediately upon entering the chamber, I felt my exposed skin begin to tingle from the leftover CS gas from the previous group. The sensation felt like if you wore a thick coat or sweater on a hot summer day and your body begins to get those little pinprick tingles, but more intense. Or someone rolling one of those prickly cactus with short needles on your skin and it's covered with some sprinkles of hot sauce. I don't know. I don't know how else I can describe it. We also had our camis with the sleeves rolled down, and I made sure to button them as tightly as I could so that the gas wouldn't go up my sleeves. And once we were in, they locked the doors, and now it was time to begin. The first thing they do is drop a bunch of CS pellets into the pot in the middle, and a huge white vapor cloud just erupts from the bowl. And once the vapor cloud spreads across the chamber, and they're fanning it out too, and it hits you, it feels like tiny little spicy needle pricks running down your exposed skin. We then begin by breaking the seal. This is done by sticking 2 fingers from both hands on both sides of the mask so that the gas would seep in. And immediately my eyes began to tear up, and I really did feel like I was inhaling Tabasco sauce, or somebody was rubbing Tabasco sauce all over my face. And at this point, people around me are letting out small coughs, and I was taking in shallow breaths, or at least shallow as I could without passing out. And remember, no one proceeds to the next stage unless everyone does the previous stage. And since my platoon was huge and close to 90 people, this means that until everyone was complying, none of us were getting out. Once everyone had broken their seals and began to feel the effects of the gas, we were then instructed to properly clear the mask and then seal the mask again, followed by various exercises like jumping jacks and shaking our masks up and down side to side, all to prove that our masks are properly cleared and sealed. At this point, I inhaled some CS gas, but it wasn't that bad, to be honest. I mean, it burned, it caused some irritation, but pretty much all of us in the gas chamber were still pretty calm. I then saw the Seaburn people add a bunch more pellets into that devious little chemical concoction they had in the center of the room, and this time significantly more. A huge wave of white vapor, just way more than before, just burst from the bowl again. This time it wafted directly onto me as they're fanning it out, because I'm standing on the side technically, and as they're wafting it side to, or they're fanning it side to side, the gas is blowing directly onto me. I also had a cut on the back of my head that felt like it was on fire. Once this new round of CS gas was dispersed in the room, now we had to remove our masks completely from our face. I take my mask off my face, and immediately I'm hit with the same irritation and burning again. This is what I would refer to as phase 1 of CS gas exposure. This phase is probably the phase that most people outside the military or law enforcement will experience if you get hit by tear gas. By the way, CS gas is a form of tear gas. You feel like you're straight up inhaling spice, but more chemically, obviously, and your nose begins to run, your eyes begin to tear up, and usually if you're exposed to CS gas in the civilian world, this is when you run away from the gas and into some fresh air. The first phase isn't fun, but it is also manageable. The second phase, now, this is the phase where it really begins to fuck with you. The burning sensation maxes out, sort of like how you eat something so spicy that it gets to a point where you can't really tell it's getting any more spicy. The part about CS gas that makes it suck so much is not the burning, alright, although it does suck. Don't get me wrong, it does suck with the burn and all that stuff, but it is the fact that it makes you feel like you're suffocating to death. Once phase 2 hits, it feels like someone is trying to smother you with a spicy pillow, or you're trying to breathe through someone wrapping a coat, like a spicy coat, tightly around your face. That's what it feels like. The thing about feeling like you're suffocating is that it is one of the fastest ways to get people to freak out, and for good reason. Humans can't go very long without oxygen, obviously, and while CS gas has never killed anyone, nor does it actually cut off your oxygen supply, it feels like it is. So we take the mask off. Yeah, it burns, but then we are told to put the mask back on and clear it and everything. Nothing crazy. We are still in phase 1 of CS gas exposure. The final part of the gas chamber is that everyone now has to take off their mask and hold it in front of them in order for us to all leave. This is when phase 2 of CS gas exposure happens, and let's just say it gets a little nutty. The mask is off my face for around 10 seconds when some moaning and coughing throughout the chamber turns into full-on screaming. The entire room erupts with people literally crying out to their parents, screaming the most desperate screams I have ever heard, because in their minds, they probably thought they were actually going to die. And then other people just began to panic. I'm obviously trying to keep my eyes shut, but I'm also taking quick peeks around the room because I want to see who the fuck still hasn't taken off their mask and is keeping us from leaving the room. Dudes begin to literally run around the chamber. Remember, I am right next to the entrance. One guy sprints directly towards the door. Actually, numerous people do this. And the DI is standing there and just body checks the dude and sends him flying to the ground. And I hear bang, bang, bang. And people throughout the room are banging their fists all around the walls, the metallic walls, trying to quote unquote escape. And don't get me wrong, my ass was getting beat by CS gas too. But I just said in my head over and over and over again, no one has died by CS gas and there is only one way out, to keep myself calm. But at some point, and it felt like an eternity, when I thought that they would have opened the door by now, we were still in the goddamn room. And I already taken so many like small, shallow breaths that it probably equated to around 2 large breaths. And it really did feel like I was suffocating. I was sucking in air, but it was just so painful with every breath, and my breath sounded like a raspy death rattle. At this point, I opened my eyes again to see why the hell we still weren't being let out. The entire time, I'm hearing everyone screaming. I hear the instructors like screaming at people to hold it together. Recruits are like screaming and freaking the fuck out. Some are like taking off their mask and putting it on, but then they're like ripping it off again, and then others are holding it out like they are instructed, and there are dudes literally rolling on the ground. Some literally press their heads against the floor to see if they can breathe fresh oxygen if they got low enough. And the screaming and pounding on the walls was non-stop. I literally heard people begging the instructors to be let out, while others were standing in place praying or screaming. At this point, and it felt like 10 minutes, although obviously it wasn't actually that long, all of the people who tried holding their breaths had already inhaled. And I personally legitimately started to think that I would probably die. Feeling like you're suffocating on gas is just a crazy experience. If you were riding a bike down the street and a plastic bag flew over your face and you suddenly can't breathe, sure, you might have a moment of panic, but you know that if you rip the bag from your face that you can breathe normally again. The thing about being in this open room and feeling like you're suffocating is that there is literally nothing you can do but put on the mask. And obviously, as you're instructed not to, you're just standing in this open room and you're feeling like you're suffocating. It's genuinely a crazy feeling. I was just straight up sucking in all the air in the room because each breath didn't feel like I was getting enough oxygen in, even though I probably was. I took deeper and deeper breaths each time I gasped in air because I just felt like I couldn't get enough air in. And finally, I felt the light fill the room as the instructors screaming at us to get out, and stretch out our arms. And so we just sprinted out the gas chamber, and everyone was covered by snot, tears. I had tears and snot, everything running down my face. It was disgusting. And then I stumbled into the fresh air, and at this point, I did not care about the burning. Again, the burning wasn't the worst part. It was just that feeling of suffocation. And I gulped in air, and I just ran with my platoon to a series of buckets filled with various chemicals and cleaning solutions so that we could clean out our gas mask. And man, I was so relieved to get out, and they were not joking about CS gas clearing your sinuses. And so, what did I learn? The gas chamber was the most physically painful event in Marine Corps Bootcamp relative to the intensity of pain to its duration, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, there were many other parts of Bootcamp that were also physically painful, but those came in more or less the form of exercise. So while it sucked being sleep deprived and hungry and going on a hike or something, I was also an athlete in high school, and middle school for that matter, where I ran cross country, track, and did some years of wrestling. The gas chamber was just a different kind of pain because the pain caused by chemicals in the lungs is pain that myself, and I'm guessing other human beings too, are not used to. I don't know, maybe some of you enjoy huffing CS gas for fun. And you know what the funny part is? After the gas chamber, you always get a few guys saying stuff like, oh man, that was nothing, or oh man, I eat a lot of spicy food so I don't even feel any of it. Those motherfuckers were the ones that were freaking out the most. I'm just gonna say, alright, there are people immune to CS gas. Yes, that is a thing. But if I saw you freak the fuck out in the chamber, and then after the event you're going to tell me, oh, you're actually immune and could have stood in the chamber for hours like it's nothing? Come on, man. You aren't fooling anyone. And hey, I love spicy food, and I'm not talking about Taco Bell spice either, right? I'm talking about real spicy shit, alright? Stuff that make you fucking treat the shit out of people, man. But loving spicy food doesn't give you immunity to CS gas. You wanna know why? Because you aren't inhaling spicy food in your lungs. Or At least I hope you're not. And obviously pain is relative. You can grow a tolerance to CS gas, especially if you're a CBurn instructor or a drill instructor that gets gassed 20 times a year. But for those of us recruits in boot camp doing it for the first time, especially if you have a huge platoon, let's just say that you're gonna feel it. Upon reflection, there is also some things that I really value from both my time in the gas chamber, but also the Marines in general. If you watch my channel, you know that I am interested in history and military history. What the Marine Corps did for me was put a lot of other things in perspective regarding, well, history. Battlefield suicides and mercy killings are a common thing you read about in memoirs and history books as well as other media. Before I enlisted, I was often confused on why some people would choose to either off themselves or their injured friends even after the threat of an enemy attack, instead of just taking themselves or a friend to a field hospital or a medic. But to be honest, I couldn't imagine the amount of pain someone would be in if they actually inhaled poison gas. I mean, there are numerous stories in history of combatants affected by chemical attacks literally coughing up pieces of their lungs, many signaling to be put down or actively choosing to clutch a grenade, alongside other injuries that cause a soldier, marine, or whoever to come to that same conclusion. And sorry, I'm not trying to be all morbid, but I do think it's a disservice to talk about serious military matters like this and sugarcoat reality, albeit it does have to be done sometimes so YouTube doesn't nuke this channel. After my gas chamber experience, let's just say I can see why people on the battlefield did it. Not saying it's a good thing or that I condone it, but more in the fact that I'm empathetic to understanding why. And more so, the military allowed me to learn about the less dramatic stuff with equal interest. I know on this channel I talk a lot about tactics and battles, and I do find that stuff interesting, don't get me wrong, but I also find things like logistics and just everyday life and the quote-unquote mundane stuff of history even more interesting. And because this is a gaming channel where I mainly play military simulation games, it just so happens to be that I talk about the pew-pew war stuff more than the other pieces of world and military history. But don't get it twisted. I am also interested in the other not war aspects of history. Thank you so much for watching, and in case you missed the announcement, I will temporarily be reducing my upload schedule to one video every 2 weeks as I am working on some school related stuff. I will still try to post once a week, but just assume my baseline schedule is one video every 2 weeks. Like and sub for future content, change your socks, drink your water, and I will see you soon.